I just went on BlueSky to check because JD Vance, opened an account there yesterday, and he blocked me. I didn't try to follow him or nothing. I just went over to BlueSky and I found out that Vance blocked me. So
what goes through your mind? You have the vice president of the United States. Obviously, everybody knows who you are. You have one of the largest followings, but what goes through your mind with that?
There it is. User blocked, JD Vance. That's his account. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, he doesn't like me. I mean, I'm the one who found that childless cat lady clip among others, and so I was kind of surprised because that account was briefly suspended yesterday because they thought it was an impersonator account, and then they immediately reinstated it. And then all the right wingers were complaining on Twitter that he's being censored by the left, when that wasn't. So I went over there just to see. I wonder how many followers he got, and I found out I was blocked.
I'm wondering, there's a possible war with us and Iran. We know what's going on in the Ukraine and the economy and all these protests everywhere. And on tops of JD Vance's mind, apparently one of the first things he does on BlueSky is block you.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because when Mike Lindell got reinstated on Twitter, the first day he blocked me. And I didn't even say anything to these people. I didn't go at them. I just went on their page and found out I was blocked. First day Michael Flynn got reinstated, he blocked me. First day Roger Stone got reinstated, he blocked me. And so it's I'm getting blocked on reputation, man. It's not fair.
I don't know, Ron. I think you should wear that as a badge of honor. By the way, those same people, I don't think JD Vance has blocked me, but I think some of those other names like Flynn and Roger Stone have blocked me. But I wear that as a badge of honor because you're doing something right.
I got up this morning and I texted all of our guys, said, it looks like a slow news day today. Congress is doing some stuff behind the scenes. Trump has nothing on his schedule. And then, more missile attacks, terrorist alert. They were all laughing at me. They said every time I say it's going to be a slow news day, all hell breaks loose.
You're right about that. I'm wondering, what do you make about the latest developments and your reaction to these missiles that were fired from Iran to some of these U.S. bases overseas? Not a surprise. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very common for decades for these countries in the Middle East to do these performative exercises for domestic consumption only. In other words, behind the scenes, the diplomats all know what's coming, what's about to happen. They don't want it to escalate and get out of control. But those particular countries need to be able to show their own people that they're doing something in retaliation. So that appears to be what happened here. Yeah. They fired 10 missiles at our bases in Qatar, but they notified us ahead of time that the missiles were coming. So obviously not something where they intended for it to do any damage, which it did not. And a symbolic gesture. The question is, is this the end of it? Is that going to be it? Or is this just something to distract from what they really have planned? The two biggest things that you have to be concerned about is closing the Straits of Hormuz, which would spike oil prices and escalate the conflict, because that would most likely result in U.S. naval intervention and a domestic terrorist attack, which Noam warned about today.
Right. I wanted to talk to you about that, but I want to get your reaction to Donald Trump's latest Truth Social tweet. He says the sites that were hit in Iran were totally destroyed. Everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. And even they say they were pretty well destroyed. Working especially hard on this falsehood is Allison Cooper of Fake News CNN, Dumb Brian Roberts, Chairman Comcast John Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Comcast NBC Fake News. What do you make of this?
Well, they're saying exactly what Trump's own Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, General Dan Kane, said at his press conference, and what every expert, military, nuclear, whatever around the world has said. You mentioned my Substack. I mean, I put out in that Substack experts, probably a dozen at least from around the world, who all said the same thing, that, when you have uranium, by the way, uranium that can be the enriched uranium that they have, Reuters reported this, can be loaded into 10 vans. And we told them ahead of time that the strikes were coming. And there were trucks and vans going to and from the site in the days before our strike. So if they wanted to evacuate the enriched uranium, move it to a different site, including there's one site that we did not even attack, they could have very easily done that. And we literally would have no way of knowing. We know that when the bombs were detonated, the international agency that regulates nuclear weapons and nuclear atomic energy said there was no uranium detected from the strike, which means that the strike most likely did not hit any processed uranium or nuclear facility. So that either means one of two things. They got the stuff out of there ahead of time, or it's buried underground and they just have to go down and get it. Tunnel down and get it, which probably wouldn't be all that difficult. So that's where we're at. I mean, so Trump wanting to declare victory, which he does on everything, he declares victory before we really know for sure, it's all for politics. It's all for PR. It's all for his own followers. When every expert, including his own generals, say there's no way of knowing. You know who else said there's no way of knowing? Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon said on his show this morning, I listened to it. He said that the only way that you're really going to know is if we sent in a Ranger team or a SEAL team or something to go and inspect the site. And we're most likely not going to do that. But that really is the only way to do a bomb damage assessment in a situation like this. So yeah. Trump is just lying again, as usual, trying to declare victory when we don't really know. It could very well be that both strikes were performative. Ours on them and theirs on us.
Yeah. What do you make of J.D. Vance and other MAGA Republicans besides our vice president saying we are not at war? What do you make of that, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to draw this distinction to where, hey, we just attacked this country's nuclear facilities, which they have invested billions of dollars in and developed for 25 years. We're only destroying that, but we're not declaring war on the country itself. I mean, it'd be like the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor and saying, we're only attacking the naval base at Pearl Harbor, not the United States. That's essentially what Vance is trying to say. And really, again, he's trying to say that for his base, because his base is deeply divided, the MAGA base. Okay? They were promised no new wars. So what he's trying to say is, oh, no. This is not a war. Yeah, we promised no new wars, but this isn't a war. This is just a surgical strike. So yeah, it's word games. It's them playing games, declaring victory. I mean, you had one of the reps from Texas, I forgot his name, was on Newsmax this morning saying, just a couple hours before they attacked our military bases, saying, if they launch an attack on our military bases, we're going to bomb downtown Tehran. Well, we're obviously not going to do that.
No, of course not. It reminds me in a little bit about what took place in Iraq under George W. Bush, where we were told weapons of mass destruction. And we all know that wasn't the case. I'm not saying we're going to lose thousands of soldiers, but at the same time, it appears to me, Ron, and you tell me whether you agree or not, that Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government, they are, for lack of a better term, maybe inflating the intelligence that they have because they want U.S. to get involved. And it seems like Donald Trump is the sucker in all this. From an outsider looking in, that's what it appears like to me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did see some reporting. I think it was New York Times or Wall Street Journal that seemed pretty reliable, which basically talking to some people behind the scenes inside Trump world. And what they were saying was that Trump had no intention in U.S. involvement. He wasn't going to do that. He had decided against it. But then he saw Netanyahu's strikes on the Iranian facilities, which they didn't have the bunker busting bombs, but they attacked other sites, and he observed that and watched it, and he was jealous of it, and he was really like, oh, I want to get involved. And of course Netanyahu is coaxing him, And yeah, so look, I said it very well could be an ego situation. It could be something very personal to Donald Trump. He certainly has a lot of things going on right now that he wants to distract the American people away from his own failures domestically. And there's nothing like a war to try and do that. But another difference between that, the WMD, Gulf War, and this is that in most of these situations, whenever U.S. is attacked or U.S. is involved militarily, there's always this massive surge in the polls, approval ratings for whoever the president is, Democrat or Republican. Remember George H.W. Bush's approval ratings right after the first Gulf War were like 88%. They were off the charts. Americans always tend to rally behind their leader when there's a foreign conflict. But in this particular situation, the polls are putrid. They're terrible. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the American people kind of see through this as a very contrived exercise.
Ron, what concerns you? Because to me, it concerns me that there could be cells in this country already, and we obviously don't want to have to deal with suicide bombers or any form of violence at all. I guess if there was any time that Iran would attack us, now would be the time. Does that concern you at all that there could be terrorist cells in this country already? And what do you make of what Kristi Noem put out today with this nationwide terrorism alert?
Yeah, I mean, she put the alert out for 90 days. That's not a small thing. And for them to actually admit that there's a problem, it means that there's a problem, because they don't want to ever admit that there's any issues. Their propaganda is always everything's great, everything's wonderful, golden age. So for them to say that there's a threat, a serious threat, there's a serious threat. And also the fact that there's so many Republicans out there preemptively blaming Biden and saying, if there is any terrorist attack by Iranians, most likely they came in during the Biden administration because we had an open border, et cetera, et cetera. So they're already, the fact that they're talking so much about preemptively blaming Biden if there is an attack tells me also that they're very concerned about one as well. And we can rest assured, if there is one, they will blame Biden.
Ron, what are your instincts on this? Where do you see this going? Is this going to be over within a few weeks? Is this going to be long and drawn out? Where do you see the ending here? And I know it's a hypothetical and we're looking to the future here, but where do you see this thing going, and how long are we going to be involved in this, you think?
Here's the most dangerous part to me from reading everything that I've read from the experts is, if this is a situation where Iran still has has saved their highly processed uranium and still has the capability to put together a bomb in relatively the near future, it is highly likely now that we won't know about it. They're going to keep it very hush hush. And remember, there's one major facility that we did not bomb at all. It's still completely intact for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And so if they have that capability, the real danger is that they will develop it in secret, since now there's no longer any. See, with the Obama nuke deal, there was full international inspectors allowed to go in there and inspect their facilities. Now there's going to be nothing. It's going to be complete lockdown. So we will not know what's going on in that country. And meanwhile, our own administration is declaring victory and saying everything is wiped out when we don't know that for sure. So my sense is, if they have the ability, if they've pretty much saved everything or preserved everything and have the ability to continue to move forward, most likely they won't do anything. They won't retaliate. They won't do anything because they don't want to rock the boat before that weapon comes online.
Yeah. I'm wondering, last question, Ron, when you see J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio standing behind the president over the weekend, I'm going to leave Pete Hegseth out of it because he's just a complete imbecile. But when you see J.D. Vance and Rubio behind the president, what do you think is going through their mind when they're listening to Donald Trump speak? Is it just, okay, we just got to be yes men and go along? Do you actually think J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio wanted us to get involved here?
Vance, for sure, no. There was reporting on that. The reporting was no, that the intelligence community said no. Vance said no. And I think even Hegseth, if I'm not mistaken, was in the report saying he did not favor this. There was another official, senior official. But yeah, it seems like the Trump's administration was pretty divided on it. But it was odd that he came out with them, because no president has ever done that before in announcing an attack on another country. They've always come out every single time. And I watched the old footage. It was always just the president.
Yeah.
So, and then he came out and he was very shaky, seemed like he was nervous. He had difficulty reading the teleprompter. And then he gave a shout out to God, thanked God for the attack. Like, yes, God is happy about this missile attack. That's what God wants. They're always trying to make this a religious war. In fact, when he said that was pretty funny, because when he thanked God, I zoomed in on the face of Vance and Hegseth, and they were both like, they both kind of did a double take, like, what? They were kind of zoned out, like they weren't even barely listening to him. And then when he mentioned thanking God, they both kind of perked up and looked over at him like, what did he just say?
Yeah,
I mean, his cognitive decline shows up more often now than ever.
We'll wait for Jake Tapper's book on that one, by the way. Ron, before I let you go, you got such a great Substack. Love reading your articles. Growing by the day, I would imagine you're going to be continuing to monitor this and follow this with an article I'm sure that you'll be releasing today, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I did like a massive article about this.
Yeah.
So
really
today
good.
I'm really, really trying hard to both cover that and go back to all the other stuff, because I'm trying not to get distracted from like the budget battle. And, we have a New York City mayor's race tomorrow, which is, I think, pretty important, because I think it's going to set the stage for the governor's election in New York next year, which is absolutely a critical race, which will likely be Elise Stefanik versus Kathy Hochul. I actually predicted today that, you have a situation where Andrew Cuomo's running, who's like, even the people who are voting for him don't like him. They're like, we're going to vote for him because he's like the most sane candidate, but we can't stand him and we think he's corrupt. And then, of course, you have the socialist candidate who is surging in the polls, actually leading in some polls. And there's a fear that if he wins, and he's had a lot of pretty far left proposals, that there will be a mass flight of the wealthy out of New York City. In fact, Ron DeSantis joked today that the real estate values in Palm Beach prices are about to go up if he wins, because a lot of the New York City people are going to flee. But I think that that's going to have a big impact on the governor's race, because my sense is that if the socialist candidate wins, that's going to really help Stefanik in her race against Hochul, versus it won't have, if Cuomo wins, it could kind of benefit Hochul, because she can be kind of seen as like the normal, non-corrupt New York Democrat. So that's also something to watch here tomorrow, that race.
Look forward to that. You're a busy man, Ron. We'll let you get right back to it. Keep up the great work, my friend, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for the time, as always.
Okay, we'll see you.
Thanks, Ron. There you go. Ron Filipkowski, everybody. Honestly, one of the best Substacks around, one of the best social media follows. I've been saying that for years. I've been following Ron. He's got close to 1 million people that follow him on X, BlueSky. Ron Filipkowski, who also served this country, and he's a modest guy, but he's also a hero. Served this country honorably. So what better person to talk to than him about this? All right. Well, this guy's been waiting very patiently, and I feel very bad, because I love Ron Filipkowski from the MeidasTouch, but I would hope that he was maybe a little bit entertained by that crazy debate that I just had with Brandon Tatum. Ron, I apologize to keep you waiting, my friend. I'm sorry about that. How are you?
That's all right. You sure you don't need a break?
No, that's okay. Talk about one.
You're used to that, huh?
Yeah, I am. I did Pierce Morgan earlier today, and I was debating Clay Travis and Roger Stone. So it's been a very interesting day for me,
Long
Ron.
day.
You're a breath of fresh air. Let me tell you this. Before I get to any of the big stories, what did you make of some of that interview with Brandon Tatum?
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic case of somebody who lives in that right-wing media echo chamber, and just only knows what he's being fed. I mean, I follow all of these guys. I don't know that I follow him. I'm not really sure who that is, but I follow tons of MAGA people, and on social media and have for many, many years, been to a lot of Trump rallies, been to a lot of conferences. And yeah, that's the mentality. They only know what they're fed from their influencers and Fox News and Newsmax. And when you're trying to come at them with like reality, like they're dumbfounded. It's like they don't know what you're talking about because they're never exposed to the other side. So
yeah,
he's just a classic case of it. You're bringing up things that are like that millions of people know and have seen that he's never seen before, or at least he claims he's never seen him before. But I believe him. I mean, he sounded like he legitimately didn't know about a lot of the stuff you were telling him about.
Crazy that he's.
I mean, like the Trump saying that he went in the locker rooms of
right.
of the beauty pageant, the Miss Teen USA. I mean, that tape has been circulating for many years. Like 100 million people have seen that, but obviously
he claims he doesn't. He claims I don't know if I believe him, Ron. I think maybe you're being a little bit too nice. I don't think he's telling the truth, but I'll send it to. Did Hillary Clinton ever say that the election was stolen?
I no. I mean, she called and conceded.
What is he talking about?
She conceded the next day or that night. Like
she said he was an illegitimate president, but not because she said the election was stolen, because the same reasons you and I call him illegitimate, not because we thought the election was stolen, because of his behavior and the things he does, right?
There were no lawsuits filed by the DNC or the Clinton campaign. There was no protests. I mean, look, there's plenty of Democratic activists that believe that election was stolen. There's plenty of there's plenty of people who believe the 2024 election was stolen by Elon Musk somehow. But I have not seen a single elected Democrat or Democratic official try and make that argument. I've seen activists do that. There are probably 10 million This is the difference really between MAGA and us, is that there are probably like 10 million Democratic activists who are on social media who believe sincerely in their heart that the election was stolen. The 2024 election was stolen by Trump.
Right. Yeah.
And yet none of us, influencers, attorneys, DNC officials, elected officials, Harris campaign officials, none of us entertained those various conspiracies. None of us filed lawsuits. None of us filed challenges. None of us did audits despite that. Mm-hmm. Whereas, Donald Trump does the opposite. He fans the flames and creates controversy and tries to delegitimize. So
yeah,
that's really the fundamental difference.
Completely agree with you, Ron. All right, let's get to the news over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours. This is crazy. Donald Trump saying today that he would be okay with Tom Homan arresting Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom. What do you make of this story? And, this is crazy, unprecedented territory we're in.
Yeah. So, I mean, you go back, Trump said it today. Yeah. Homan said it. You go back and forth between like, are these guys just trying to talk junk or like they actually really serious? And I think, you have to take them seriously because they've already arrested a lot of people. I mean, they've arrested a Democratic member of Congress, a labor leader, they've arrested several officials they arrested the mayor of Newark, and then they dropped the charges and he's now suing them.
Yep.
Gavin Newsom filed a lawsuit against Trump today for illegally federalizing the National Guard. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the new San Francisco Chronicle story that just came out that Newsom posted on that, which is like those guard troops didn't even have food and water. They got called up and they just like threw them in like a makeshift barracks because, they keep in mind, these aren't guys sitting at a military base. They're called up from jobs. So he activated them. They might be working in, Starbucks or something or a factory. He activated them, called them up. They show up in their uniforms. There's no food. There's no water. There's not even any beds for them to sleep in because, again, he federalized these guys. And so this was the major complaint about Newsom was, we should have been in charge of this, but he stepped in and took over, and they were completely unprepared to handle it. And so
I want to ask you about that, Ron, because you served, Ron, and I wanted to ask you about this, and you talked about this on social media. These Marines, God love them, they're heroes, but at the same time, they're not trained to handle this sort of stuff. They're trained to deal with the enemy, not our own people. And I don't understand why MAGA Republicans struggle to realize that that's a last resort, right? To deploy these people in there, not a first resort. There are some serious crimes that have been taking place, but local law enforcement said they have it. The governor says we don't need your help. The mayor says we don't need your help. Can you explain to people why this is so dangerous, what Donald Trump is doing, deploying these people in there?
So the last time the federal government called up the National Guard against a state governor's objection was 1965, Lyndon Johnson, who did it during the civil rights movement in Alabama. That was the last time. So obviously this doesn't happen very often. The last time the Marines were used against Americans or in American cities was the Civil War. So it's been almost 200 years. So that's where we're at. And I tried, when he mentioned 29 Palms, it sort of hit home for me because, you know, I was stationed in Camp Pendleton, and I spent a lot of time at 29 Palms. And I just thought of like myself being in that position, like as an 18, 19-year-old Marine, and you're told like you're being sent to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like you train I went through desert warfare school, mountain warfare school, jungle warfare school, all kinds of warfare schools, but we don't go through like urban law enforcement school or deportation school. There's no training on it. So it's like, what are you going to do? Like, we're trained to kill people. Like, that's what we're prepared to do, is fight wars. And you're going to send us into an American city? I just couldn't imagine having to deal with that as a young Marine, or what I would be supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, it's just absolutely despicable and crazy times that we are living in. What do you think happens here? I don't think Holman would do that. I mean, what's the crime that Gavin Newsom has committed, number one? And number two, what do you make of Donald Trump laughing about it in front of like a little press corps when he was getting off of Air Force One? What did you make of that earlier today?
Yeah. I mean, he was asked this afternoon, what crime did Newsom commit? And he said he ran for governor. Okay, well, you know, typical Trump is like, you know, and he's calling for them to arrest people that wear face coverings.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a crime. He's just calling for federal law enforcement to start arresting anybody wearing a mask at a protest.
Right.
Completely illegal. So, you know, would he arrest Newsom? No. I mean, he's not going to arrest Gavin Newsom. I think that's all just BS talk. But I think he could arrest local officials on the ground. I definitely think that he could do that. But do I think he'll escalate it to like Mayor Bass or Gavin Newsom? No.
Probably not. But you never know with Donald Trump. I guess we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. What else, Ron, do you have working on today? Obviously, the developments in LA are really important, but I think in a way it kind of takes away from everything else that's going on. What's going on in Ukraine right now? What's going on in Gaza right now? Again, when we look at the economy, when we look at the future, and a lot of people saying we're in for a recession. I mean, I feel like it takes away from everything else that we were talking about last week.
You know, you hear this a lot. You hear this a lot from members of Congress, and you hear this a lot from activists as well, who each have something that they care about a lot. And whether it's this or the crypto or anything that Trump does, you always hear this refrain, which is like, he's doing this to distract us from something else. Well, you know, I don't think that he does do that. I don't think he's playing like 4D chess in any way. I think he's just manic, crazy, in deep cognitive decline. And every single day he just creates mayhem because that's what he does. So I don't think there's like any specific plan, but I agree. And I catch myself all the time saying like, don't spend too much time on this. It has to be covered, but there's still a lot of other things that need to be covered, like the big, beautiful bill and all that. So we can't get distracted on that. Although this is a super important story that needs a lot of attention.
Ron, before I let you go, on a lighthearted note, as you recall, when Joe Biden was president, if he stumbled anywhere, MAGA Republicans and the Sean Hannitys and Laura Ingrams of the world would lead with it for their entire show. And I find it interesting that Donald Trump is stumbling upstairs and looks like he falls down. It's interesting. Fox News and OAN and Newsmax, they don't seem to be showing that video, Ron. I wonder why.
Well, let me just tell you, as I said, as somebody who follows right-wing media and stuff, I seen just those Biden, every single time Biden would mispronounce a word or slip or trip or whatever, every time it would just be everywhere for days and days and days for 4 years. I don't. And in fact, I told the guys, I'm like, I'm actually kind of happy that Biden's not president anymore, because I just don't have to see all that Biden stuff anymore, because it was just like nonstop. So, it's kind of funny, like when you go ahead and you post that and you start making fun of it, all these MAGA accounts follow me, and they're all like, how can you make fun of him for tripping? How dare you? They're all outraged. And, what about Biden? And it's like, yeah, dumbass. If you guys didn't do this with Biden for 4 years, I wouldn't even care that Trump tripped on the stairs.
Right.
Like, who cares? But it's because you did this to Biden for 4 years, and now Trump, who's taking the presidency, who's the same age Biden was at this point in his presidency, he's going to be tripping a lot. He's mispronounced his words a lot. And look, Ben last night on the MeidasTouch podcast, he did like a 15-minute montage of all of Trump's slip ups and everything. So it's kind of funny on two grounds. It's funny from them complaining. It's also funny when you like post something like that on BlueSky to have like a lot of the liberals will be like, this is ageist. This is not right. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, we got to be a little bit more ruthless here. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, I wouldn't be picking on like, I don't know, Chuck Grassley,
right,
on this, but Donald Trump is a special case.
Yes, I certainly agree. Ron, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Sorry we ran a little late there. I always appreciate your time, my friend. We'll let you get back to it. I'm sure you're going to be writing up some stuff on LA. I'm sure that's what you're working on right now.
Yeah, I am.
Look forward to reading it. You got a great
All
Substack,
right,
man. You're one of the best. Ron, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. Thank you so much.
See ya.
See you, Ron. All right, Ron Filipkowski, everybody from MeidasTouch, one of my favorites in the business.